a topical issue in our community, license plate reading cameras. For our members, a couple of housekeeping things. You would have seen a recent email go out asking you to please vote on recent constitutional changes as part of our process of switching over to 501(c)(3). We're doing a review of our constitution and our bylaws. They're asking for your input on that. If you didn't get the email and you are a member of City Club, please talk to either myself or Len Goodwin, our board member, afterwards. We'll make sure you get a copy of that. Also for our members, on December 18th, we're hosting a member appreciation program here at Roaring Rapids. Pizza's on us. And we are going to be packing baskets for Catholic Community Services. We have home care and self-care products. Nick, I know you got something back there from our board. Our board members are contributing all of the items, but for our members who want to come and participate and we'll package those up, you're welcome to bring any of the wrapping materials. So cellophane to wrap the baskets, ribbon, bows, etc. Just encourage you to join us with me. So we'll send some additional information out about that as we get a little closer to December here. Today's program, again, is focused on license plate reader cameras. This is an issue that we've been talking about across Springfield and Eugene. So we've invited, and thank you for being here, Chief Jamie Resch to come and speak with us today. Chief Resch was sworn in as the City of Springfield Chief of Police on March 17th, and we have her out recently to introduce her to you all. She joined the police department in 2023 as their deputy chief. Since then, she's made significant strides in strengthening community relationships, mentoring officers, and enhancing department operations. 26 years of law enforcement experience, including serving as Portland's chief of police. Chief Resch excels in leadership, community engagement, and department operations. She holds advanced certificates in command and decision-making, threat assessment training, and diplomatic security law enforcement training. She earned a bachelor's degree in allied health sciences with a minor in psychology from the University of Portland. Chief Resch is going to be giving a presentation. It's about 30 minutes long, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end. So if you're joining us via Zoom, you can either put your questions in the chat, or you can let us know that you have a question to ask, and we'll ask you to unmute when it's time. If you're in the audience, you can either use the question cards that are on the table in front of you and pass those to the front of the room to one of our board members, and we'll go ahead and ask on your behalf, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. If you are asking the question yourself, we ask that you please keep your questions framed as a question and that you keep them concise so that we can get to as many questions as we can throughout the process of this program before we end at 1 o'clock. So with that, Chief Resch, thank you for joining us.
All right, well, thank you guys for having me back again today. So asked just a few days ago that I come by to your event and speak again. There was no time limit given, so I didn't know I was supposed to have a 30-minute presentation. I do not have a PowerPoint for you all. I'm just here to have a conversation today. And explain the technology of automated license plate readers, or ALPR, as you've heard it referred to a lot in different aspects of community, as we've been talking about it lately. Mostly how this came about, especially in the city of Springfield, is that back in 2024 or end of 2023. Oh, and just let me stop for a moment. This is Brian Austin, who's one of our analysts here at Springfield Police Department. I brought him along with me because he has more of the technical knowledge than I do as far as the cameras. And so if there were questions that I didn't know the answers to, I was hoping he could provide some context for you all. I'm just moving this cord for just a second. So the last thing I need to do is fall on camera. Anyway, so how this kind of came about is back in the end of 2023 into 2024, there was a grant through the CJC, the Criminal Justice Commission, for organized retail theft. We put in for that grant. We were given money for different things, some equipment, money to do different missions, where we did missions in different various retail areas throughout the community. You've probably seen some of our press releases related to the impact that that had. One of the things that we were given permission to purchase was license plate reader cameras through that grant. And a lot of people have asked, as I've been talking more and more about license plate readers, like what is the tie to organized retail theft? And a lot of times when people think about shoplifting or organized retail theft, they kind of combine the two, and they are very similar. But organized retail theft is on a much grander scale than, let's say, somebody who's walking into a local retailer and taking some small items and leaving without paying. Organized retail theft is very structured, it's very lucrative. They are able to take a lot of money from businesses, and we see this. We are on the I-5 corridor. We have very easy access to I-5, and we have some large stores that are near I-5, and they experience a large amount of theft. This is very coordinated, and we can go more into that if people have questions about that. But the cameras are more because people come into our city and they take things and they leave, right? And then they're on to the next city, or they come from Portland and they head down this way, or they come from Bedford and they head this way. And so it's not something that we're gonna be able to find their cars in our city all the time, and having the ability to take photos of those cars is sometimes very beneficial. So that's when people talk about, well, it's just shoplifting. Organized retail theft is a lot more than just shoplifting. So that's why we applied for it during that grant period. So how we did our cameras, and just to be very clear, we do have cameras that are up there, not on. They were on briefly as they turned them on, and then or as they were installing them, and then the decision was made to turn them off while we continue to have community dialogue. So our cameras are not on. We were authorized to we lease 25 cameras in our area. They were placed in strategic areas around retail areas, and then ingress and egress out of our city. So like, you know, on Franklin or on Pioneer up near Gateway in certain areas. You can see where all of our cameras are online. Some people asked, you know, why did we publish where our cameras were going to be? And it's just so that everybody knows where they're at. I think if people are doing crimes, I don't know that they're really going to take the time to, you know, find a route around them, but we wanted to make sure that everybody knew exactly where the cameras were. I didn't think it would impact the effectiveness of the cameras. So if you're interested, I know we put that out several times, but you can go on our website and you can see where all of our cameras are. Again, they're not turned on, so they're not gathering any data at this time. The cameras are designed to take still photos of the rear license plates cameras. And this is ALPR. I'm not talking about any particular company right now, but the ALPR cameras are designed to take pictures of the rear license plate. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, well, what do they get? What happens after that, right? You have this picture of my license plate, and then what? And I think there was some misunderstanding from some folks who thought that that meant that if I get a license plate of your car, the back of your car, that then all of a sudden everything about you pops up. Everything that I run in the DMV database then pops up. That's not how it works with the cameras. It takes a picture of the license plate, and if I'm looking for a car and I run the plate and I find that picture in our database, if we had a database, I would have to then go into another law enforcement data system that I have access to as DMV, and I would have to put that information in using my credentials in order to find any information about the registered owner of that car. It doesn't just pop up automatically. So even though those cameras are capturing that data, that personal identification data is not associated automatically with the picture of that license plate. And so that's kind of what the cameras are designed to do, is to take those just still photos. And like I said, it doesn't access any personal identification number. A law enforcement officer would have to take that information, put it into a separate system. And those are all systems that we have access to every day, and we have to use them according to the policies and procedures that we have. We can't use them for personal gain. We can't use them to just find information on somebody that we're curious on. We have to have a legal law enforcement reason to be doing those things, which would be the same for if we were running a plate for a reason, if we had a photograph of it. It would be the same now if there was an incident and there was a witness who had a license plate photo. I would then have to take that photo, put it in that law enforcement system that we have access to, and I would have to do it for a law enforcement reason. So I think that there was some concerns that folks were like, oh, it's just going to start populating people's personal information all over the place. And that's not how the system is designed to work. So obviously, I think everybody here is aware we put our cameras up, and then there was a lot of questions from the community about how they were going to work, what they were going to do, how the data was being shared. So there is a temporary pause on our cameras while I talked to some more of our community members. I've met with some people. We're going to continue to have conversations, and we're going to see if we can design our program in a way that people feel comfortable with, that they are certain that the information that we have is being stored securely and it's being used appropriately. So, I know that there's probably questions that people have. And I can stand up here and talk for a long time about lots of things, but it's probably best if I just answer some of your questions. And if there's a technical one, I'll ask Brian to come up and provide some guidance. But like I said, right now, we are in the process of still having conversations with our community members to see if there is a way that we can develop a guideline so that this technology is useful for the police department. I believe very strongly that this is a very useful tool. I know that, Eugene had their cameras up for a little bit, and I cannot speak to Eugene or their policy, but I do know that in the amount of time that they had those cameras up, they did help us solve cases as well. We solved one of our homicides, Eugene solved one of theirs. There were multiple felonies that were assisted by the use of these cameras. But it's also very important that our community feels safe in using these cameras, that they understand that we're doing the best that we can to also safeguard their personal information. So that's what we're continuing to work for here. So I'll just leave it at that. I know it's a brief summary, sorry, nowhere near 30 minutes. But I feel like there's probably some questions that I can probably answer and hopefully make people feel more comfortable with the process. So yeah.
Chief, could you kind of give some examples of how they will be used?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. So let's say, so if your car is stolen, it goes into a database, and then like if any police officer runs your license plate anywhere, then it pops up and it says, oh, that's a stolen car. And then the officer has to verify that that's actually the license plate, the car and all that stuff. So the stolen cars, the license plate reader, the picture is run against the stolen car database, basically. And then as the cars drive by it, it would basically hit. That's what we call it. You get a hit. And so the officers would get notified on their computers, oh, a stolen car just drove by the camera at this location. So that would give us an idea, hey, the officers can kind of flood that area, look for that vehicle. Another way is if we have like a suspect vehicle. So if somebody is assaulted and we have a license plate or a partial license plate or a description of a car, it's a, Toyota Tacoma blue in color, and it's got a 2 in the license plate or something. We can put that into the system. We can see if the cameras come up with anything that it's had, like if there's a history of a vehicle like that. We can also put it into the system so that we can tell the cameras to look for that and then give us a hit when it sees something like that. So it would be used in like stolen cars, suspect vehicles. We can use it for missing persons. We can use it for Amber Alerts. And those kinds of things. So, a lot of times we have people who are maybe experiencing Alzheimer's or dementia and they drive away. We could put those vehicles in, and if that hit on our camera, we'd be able to use it in those situations as well. Yeah.
Would it catch like a person running a red light or speeding through the intersection or something like that?
No, they're not red light cameras, so they're not designed to pick up like speed or anything like that. That's a completely different system, a completely different camera.
So Chief, I'm still not clear on how this works. So if there's thousands of vehicles driving every day with all the lights, so I don't understand, does it take a picture of all of them? It only takes pictures of certain things that you're requesting a system. It's confusing to me exactly.
Right.
When it's active or not.
Yeah, so how the system is designed for most is that it takes pictures of the license plates and it stores them for a selected amount of time. 30 days, 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is that you set it as. Or you could set, basically like a really, really limited retention period. And then you wouldn't have the historical, oh, I want to go see if this car has been somewhere. But you could have it looking for like stolen cars or suspect vehicles that you enter in.
That system that stores that information is separate from the system you use to get data, whether it's DMV or whoever it is.
Correct, yeah, 2 different systems. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about sort of how the broader system is set up? There's release the cameras.
Mhm.
There must be data storage. They're downloading all the time. Is that also used? Who's got the proprietary interest in that? And then who sets the policy about where that information moves
Correct, yeah, so the cameras that we currently have are flock cameras, and there's multiple companies that have ALPR technology. Flock is a company, and we have a contract with them currently that stores our data. And that's where a lot of the conversation is happening, is how secure is that data? And how can we prove how secure that data is? And what can Flock or any other company that we may choose to use, how are they going to ensure that that data is secure? And who has access to it? So right now, how it's set up, Flock says it's our data, right? And that we have the access to it and they won't share it unless we tell them to. There's been a lot of discussion on whether or not that is accurate and how we are going to be able to monitor that. And that's part of the discussions that I'm continuing to have with the community on what can we do, whether it's with Flock or whether it's another company or just moving forward with technology to make sure that we have those safeguards in place. So that's how it's designed right now. It's the contract that we have with Flock that says they won't share our data. It's also, we have the ability to determine who we will share it with, right? So at first, when our cameras were going up, there was a big long list because that was a bunch of people who had requested whether we would share information. We didn't do anything with that list because we didn't really have any information to share with them. So there's conversations about would we only share it with agencies in Oregon because we are a sanctuary state and we want to make sure that our information is being used how we as the community of Oregon want it to be used. Then there's discussions on do we shrink it down even further and just say no, just agencies in Lake County, because that's probably, a lot of what we would see here. And so there's a bunch of discussions that we're continuing to work through on who we would share it with and how to secure that data.
And just to follow, ultimately, that's a city council decision,
Well, I think
or is that an administrative decision of the police department?
so obviously we take direction from council and from the city manager. So if council and city manager are saying, we don't want you sharing with the entire country, then I'm probably not gonna share with the entire country, or I'm only gonna share with the state of Oregon, that kind of thing. So yeah.
I have a couple of questions. Is AI in any way involved in either the picture taking process or maybe the data analyzing process?
So I'll let Austin speak to this a little bit, but it is a system where the camera is recognizing, different letters and numbers on a license plate and types of vehicles. So there is no like facial recognition or anything like that associated with it, but it is an AI system.
And I know they're currently off. Are you guys kind of waiting for the approval of the city council, of residents, kind of giving you guys the green light to turn them back on? Do you have a time frame?
I think it's a little bit of both. We don't have a set time frame, but there are obviously community concerns that have been voiced to us. And as the chief of police, I don't want to do anything where the community doesn't feel comfortable with it. I strongly believe that ALPR technology is important and that it is very helpful in law enforcement. I also know that any law enforcement tool has to be used appropriately, and otherwise the community doesn't trust it. And so I want to make sure that I'm having these conversations with our community members and that we're building a program that is very useful for the police department, but is still also trusted by the community.
Last question, sorry guys. I know that these cameras are grant funded. Let's say you guys don't get the okay from residents and even let's say the city council. How does returning grant funded equipment work?
We lease them, so from Flock, so Flock would come and take them back.
So you said that it was your understanding that they're designed to read the back of the license, the rear car license plate. But it's a photograph, so what else could it be taking pictures of, and then what could happen with it?
Yeah, so it's like the way the cameras are designed, we have them set so that that's the intent, is to get the rear of the license plate. But like let's say for example, if there's a camera at the roundabout at 42nd and Jasper. If somebody's walking across right there at exactly the same time, it would take a photo of that person as well. It's not what it's designed, it's not reading it or anything like that. I can't go in with the cameras we have. There are different cameras with different capabilities that can do different things, right? And we don't have those types of cameras as far as like, please find a person wearing a plaid shirt. There are ALPR cameras out there that can do that. We did not purchase those types of cameras, so it's not a system, it's not something our system can do.
So you explain that your system can't just look it up and get people's information next to a server system. Flock has a product where they actually tried to have that, they were, actually, I think it still works like that, but it works through like publicly available data. They, 404 Media had reported on this, I don't know if they are,
No.
Broadway in this reference. Anyway, so they reported from leagues that dark web data was being used, and they had been, they said they were considering it, but they never actually did. But that, so mostly I think they're using party mobile data that has license plates, names, addresses, and stuff like that. So what protections are there in the inevitable leak of block data? Because everybody's susceptible. Once that's leaked, you have these two data sets that one says who it is and the other one says everywhere they've been for 30 days. How is our community protected from that kind of leak that's going to happen?
So what would happen is you'd have to have a breach of both systems, right?
There's already one that's breached.
So if you, well, I mean, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
there's many there. I mean,
Right.
California, Texas, all sorts of things. So
Mhm. Yeah, and that's the thing, I mean, I can't guarantee, no matter what company you have or what company we use, I can't guarantee my phone's not gonna be breached or, any other system. So that's why, as I'm continuing to have these conversations, we're gonna try to look for the company who we feel can protect our data the best. And that's really all that we can do. I don't know that, I can't stand up here and tell you that anything we carry around with us, our computers, our phones, anything, will never have a data breach. But to put the best safeguards in place is what we're trying to do.
yeah, I understand. So, if not Flock, maybe somebody else.
Yeah.
As far as Flock goes themselves, which you already have an investment in. And Ron Wyden is already very concerned about their security practices, be it multi-factor authentication or whatever. They've already kind of, they're a multi-billion-dollar startup, not profitable. We all kind of know how those kinds of companies operate in the beginning. Security doesn't seem like it's usually ever a priority for those kinds of companies. Since they've already, there's a breach in their own state police department, where reservist took data to his buddy's company who has surveillance startup himself to use his police department's data to train his buddy's software. So we've already seen that happen. So how, I just don't see how we can trust Flock to have such incredibly powerful data, all of us, like wherever we go.
Yeah.
Like the amount of divorce proceedings that would be blown up from that. This is kind of Ashley Madison website back in the day.
Is your question, what data, just trying to get at the question here, is your question, what data is shared with Flock? Can you, I think you touched on that earlier.
Yes, I think, yeah, and I think a lot of what you spoke to is like a human doing something they shouldn't be doing, right? Taking data that they have access to and inappropriately using it in another system. And so, that's something that, can happen anywhere within the system. And so that's why you have to have safeguards in place, policies, audits, and those types of things to make sure that you don't have somebody who is misusing the system. I have access as a police officer to, like I said, law enforcement data systems, and there are rules in place and rules on when I can use it and when I cannot, and severe penalties if I violate those rules. So it would be the same. It's a system that the officers have access to that they have to use for a law enforcement purpose. But again, I can't ever come up and say that there's going to be a company who can 100% guarantee that no human is going to misuse their system.
I think that's kind of the issue of transfer. So, for multi-factor.
Can we move on?
Yeah, I'm sorry, one more.
Sure.
Yeah. So as far as multi-factor authentication, you're using that within your department?
Correct.
And the oversight of, who has the oversight of who uses and stuff?
Right, so all of the officers would have individual logins, and then we have a draft of what kind of our audit would look like, so we would be able to go back through and check that. And that's part of a safeguard that we would have in place, or we will have in place, whichever ALPR system I'm hopeful to find one that, they, like I said, that the community feels safe with, but is still effective for police, right? I don't want to find a system that really doesn't help us, and spend money towards that. So I'm hopeful that we'll come up with something that people feel comfortable with, and that will safeguard, their information, but still provide benefit to the police department.
Thank you.
We have an online question from Sandra Bishop. Sandra, would you ask your question, please?
Thank you, Chief. Hi, I'm a City Club member in Eugene, but we have a cooperative agreement with Springfield, so I tried to come and I couldn't make it in person today. I had a question, if you could spend a couple minutes letting us
Rose.
know about the process of the grants, because I've heard the same story in Eugene as in Springfield, that somehow these cameras had to be rushed to be put up. So I'm wondering why there wasn't any public process at the front of the deal. And every time I've asked that, they've said, oh, we had this grant money, we had to spend it. So could you tell us, is it the Oregon Justice Commission? What is the Oregon Justice Commission? Why is a local decision being pushed by?
The Criminal Justice Commission, CJC, that's where the funding came from. So we did have a limited amount of time to use the funds, because, you know, as grants go, you have to spend the money by X amount of time. So when we got the cameras and then we started having conversations and people started expressing concerns, we put the cameras up and turned them off so that if we were to have like, let's say next week, we meet in the community group that we're talking with, we're able to put everything in place. I can then turn those cameras on. If I hadn't used the decision to install them and turn them off and continue conversations.
Thank you.
Was kind of based off of knowledge of Eugene. Is there any kind of amendments that Springfield Police made with Flock or the company who runs the cameras? Is there any kind of amendments that you guys made to safeguard information, or what?
We did with one of the biggest community concerns was, you know, federal agencies and any information related to immigration. So Brian reached out to Flock several months ago when we first started talking about that and said, could you please put in something that if somebody from anywhere actually is going to use the system and use our data, they certify that they're not using it for that purpose. So Flock added that. I think the senator also requested that, and that was added as part of the safeguard. And then also the decision to not share with federal agencies as well, a decision. And then Flock went in and, you know, there's a lot of police departments in this country. And some have names that, you know, don't sound federal and some have names that sound federal. And so, so Flock went in and basically any federal agencies highlighted. So it makes it easier to, if you are looking at that, like, who is that? And if you were making a decision to share with them. So there are some things. I think that there are other things that, you know, we're talking about in different contract languages and stuff with any ALPR system that we would use.
Expired tags, does that have kind of anything to do with the jurisdiction if I were to, last question, guys, sorry. Just to clarify, so Flock camera is the equipment itself, but the LRPA system is the storage database. And so currently you guys are on the lookout for a secure one?
No, so ALPR is just the term for the technology, automated license plate reader. So there are other companies that have that ability. Flock is a company that provides that service. Yeah, right.
This, to start with, I'm 100% in favor of them, but, this is a real hypothetical. If I were to go tonight, this afternoon, have my grandson in the backseat of my car, drive to Albertsons out in Thurston, get out of my car and get carjacked. The odds much greater that that person will be caught and my grandchild will be safe than without Flock cameras, or with Flock cameras and without Flock cameras.
It's a very good question. I can tell you this, there would be a lot more opportunities to see your vehicle if we have automated license plate readers. And that's why I'm saying that the technology is important.
Right.
And whether or not it's with the company we currently have or another one, that's why I find it so important to have these conversations because I don't want the technology to get lost in the concerns that folks have with the current company. So if there's a way that we can still get this technology and find a better way to secure it or work with the community to develop policies and procedures that make people feel that their data is safe, I'm gonna continue to do that. Because I do feel confident that having the ability to go and look at 25 different locations in the city of Springfield for vehicles, especially in those types of situations, is better than the 6 officers that I have on duty at once.
A question on the grant funded piece of the technology. What's the duration of that grant? What happens after you've completed the grant? What's the expense to the department? And then you have to imagine there's some cost savings. What are you doing? What plans do you have to kind of capture that data as far as what the benefit is to the bottom line in
Yeah.
having this?
So, yeah, they are all grant funded. If the grant goes away, we all know budget right now. And so I wouldn't say, oh, I'm gonna go try and get the $100,000 for cameras. We will keep looking for other grants if we have the authority to use ALPR technology. But then, maybe eventually down the road, when we see the impact of it, if it's the impact that I anticipate it being, one of the audits that we looked at as an example actually lists out and shows all of the cases that the flock cameras assist with. And if there's a dollar value associated with that, like, okay, that it helped us recover 17 stolen vehicles. Those 17 stolen vehicles were valued at, $110,000 or altogether, whatever that is. So it's a way to show the, the impact that these have, or, did it help us find a missing person? Did it help us find somebody who had stolen $50,000 from a retailer over the course of 2 months or something? So right now, they are all grant funded. And if I did not get another grant, we wouldn't be able to have this technology, but I would continue to look for grants that allow us to have technology once we come to an agreement on how it's used.
Are there cities, excuse me, are there cities in Oregon using ALPR?
Yes, there's a lot.
When there's a lawsuit for misuse, how does that work versus like the company or just not blocking? Like, are they taking the blame or is it the city that would have, the blame for it and then be sued?
I think it depends on the misuse. So if I have an officer that's misusing the technology, then that's a police department problem, and then the lawsuit would probably come to the city. If whatever company that we were using misused the information, then my assumption would be that the city would have the ability to then go file a lawsuit against that company. So it just depends on where the misuse occurred.
From the other cities that have installed these cameras and are using them, is there some good data there yet to actually see that they are from any stolen car crimes or whatever,
Yeah, there are. You can go, you can look on Flock's database and look at different cities, and different cities have different dashboards for showing, what they've recovered or how the cameras have been used. Yeah, there's data out there that you can go find, and it shows the impact that these cameras have had.
Can you summarize it just briefly?
The only stats that I know, and I didn't ask Chief Skinner, so hopefully Chief Skinner doesn't get upset that I used his numbers, but he presented these numbers at a meeting that he was at. They had over 90 cases while their cameras were up that they attribute Flock assisting to, and over 60 of those being felony cases, and their cameras were up for several months.
What's your decision time frame look like?
I don't actually have a decision time frame. I just want to make sure we do it right.
Why is that?
Yeah, as long as it takes to make sure that we get the system that's gonna work best for us and that our community feels best with. Of course, knowing the benefit of this, I would like that to be quick, but I also know how process works, and it's never gonna be as quick as I want it to be, but I just want it to be correct.
Is it technically possible for those cameras to be turned on by someone other than you?
Well, they're Flock cameras, so I suppose Flock could turn them on, but we had told them not to turn them.
Which are you, So, but there's no assurances that they could collect that data while they're supposed to. Cause they put them up in cities like I think Orlando before without even asking. So, and I know people are like kind of, want to put some sort of cover over that. Is that like an option at all? Or-
We could put a cover on them, but I mean, they're not gathering any data. We're not getting anything on our system showing that they're reading license plates. Again, I guess if we found that out, we would have, you know, probably a good degree of certainty that we could tell Flock they were breach of their contract and file a suit against them, but right now they're turned off.
Like we could physically like tell if they're not.
How long is the current lease term?
I think the current contract that we have, I think goes through, it's summer of 26 is the current contract that we have.
We're our own city, and we get to make our own decisions on this, but considering that Eugene and Springfield are both having these conversations at the same time, what does that communication or collaboration look like between the two cities or two departments?
Right, and that's a good question. I mean, it would be unfortunate if we ended up with two systems. Because we are like, you know, there's the only thing that divides us is the highway. And so it would be great if whatever we had was the same. But if that doesn't work out to be the case, there is the ability if we're allowed to share information. If I had a car that I was looking for and Eugene had a separate system, I could call them and say, I'm looking for this car for this reason. And that's another thing that will be part of, you know, whatever system we have is that you're gonna have to put in your law enforcement reason for doing that. And so it wouldn't be ideal, it would be workable if we ended up with two systems, but I do talk to Eugene and talk about the importance of having the same system. And it just, I mean, I think it probably makes pretty clear sense why it would be important for at least our two cities to have the same system if we do have ALPR. So, yeah,
So I think there was a news report, some of the cameras have been damaged.
correct.
So if a camera is damaged, are you the responsible party to replace it or is Flock?
Flock, we lease them, so Flock would come out and replace them. They haven't replaced them because they're not on, so I think we've had 5 damaged. Mhm.
Vandalism or?
Yeah,
And they're on separate poles?
some of them are on separate poles, some of them are on poles that were already there. Yeah.
It's actually a question for Brian. So with the safeguards that you put in place regarding immigration or abortion being in the search field, we know that when someone does a search, they can put anything they want in their search reason field. So besides that, do you have any safeguards to prevent that kind of misuse?
So in regards to the potential for an audit occurring searches, what we would be able to do is look for anything that stands out as abnormal or something that's not going to be fall into a normal crime type thing along those lines. We are already starting to kind of buckle down on talking to our officers about not just putting vague terminology within that, putting an actual crime type in instead of or anything like that, because we understand that is vague and really not good. But the reality is if we are able to then audit it and we're able to look at what officer, we have the access to what officer is actually, you know, performing those searches, then we can go back and look at exactly what they were doing that day, what type of case they were on, what type of incident they were on at that time, and be able to look at that.
But if it's an officer outside your department, say, I'm an officer in Texas, we share data, I'm investigating an abortion. Someone is in your jurisdiction, but I don't want you to know that that's why I'm investigating her. So I put something else in, even if I put in my case number, there's not any way for you to protect that, right?
If they don't put in a reason that is filtered by the actual specific, a filter that Flock is built into it, technically no. And then we have also reduced it all the way down as of right now. We will be sharing with Oregon agencies, even though we don't have any data.
One of the things that we talked about doing in relation to your question is, especially if it's just like a Oregon, we're just sharing with Oregon, is we can, as part of our audit, contact those agencies and ask to see those reports. So if it's case number 25 1 2 3 4 5, obviously we wouldn't do that with everything, and I'm not saying that we would do that, but it's just something that we talked about as a safeguard to let other agencies know that we spot check your work. And so if you are using it inappropriately, then we have a better chance of catching it by making you put the case number in. And then like Brian said, there's a lot of police terminology that when I look at the reason for why somebody runs a plate, it makes sense to me because it's an acronym that we use. But when it's on a public facing dashboard, it doesn't make any sense because, you know, ALT, DK, that means that they're trying to attempt to locate a drunk driver. But it doesn't mean anything to most of the people in the room here. It's just letters. So again, making it more clear, especially for public facing information.
Knowing that these are being used kind of across the US, is there data at this point to understand how many of those states are only sharing internally, how many are sharing with other states, or like how much do you anticipate you would have other states asking for our data if in fact we did share?
If we didn't share, I would anticipate it being for something big, right? Like we have a homicide suspect, we have reason to believe he's in the Springfield Eugene area. You know, and then we would say, okay, what's your name? What's your case number? And, you know, then we could run the car and see if we have any information and then share that. But like I said, there's so many different ALPR systems out there that it's difficult. I don't know all of the cities and what all different systems that they're using. Some people have in-house systems, some people use companies. So it would be really difficult to know. I think there are some states that have said, no, you can't share outside the states. Is that California? California is one of those states. So yeah, people are doing it differently in different places.
Are there a lot of incidents of misuse of this information?
Not that I'm aware of, but like by officers.
As a citizen, I think this sounds like something I would want for my own safety and for other people's safety. But I don't get the opposition, so that's why I was wondering if there are a lot of situations out there where there's been misuse, so that I should think to myself, oh, I don't want that information. I don't want somebody to know I went to Target.
Yeah, I think that's the concern, right? Is that there's the possibility for that misuse, and then there are you know, lawsuits and things that are occurring that allege that. But again, the information sharing is the license plates, and like you mentioned, you know, then the officer would, if it's a misuse by an officer, they would have to then go misuse another system to find out the information about you. So I think that's why it's so important that we work together to figure out how we can design a guideline that makes people feel like their information is secure as best as we can secure it. Again, I'm never going to come up here and tell you we've designed a system that's never going to be breached. Right? But we've done the best that we can, and we've put safeguards in place so that if a person misuses it, we're aware of it, and then there's penalties for that. And then if the company itself breaches its contract, then we're aware of it and we can take steps to address that as well. So, yeah.
To follow up on her question, would the camera ever indicate that she went to Target, or would it just show her license plate?
Well, it's designed to show her license plate. However, if it's taking a picture, like, let's not use Target, because we don't have anything that shows you going into Target. They're on the roads, right? So, but if you are crossing the street somewhere where a camera is enabled and you crossed in front of it, it would take a picture. So I'm never gonna tell people it's only taking pictures of license plates, because you may get a person in a picture somewhere. But that's not what they're designed for.
I don't know if Target does, but Lowe's and some other businesses have it around too. But question about like the logins. So do they have to be on like your police department's like network?
Yes.
Do they have login? They can't log in from home.
No, they could log in. I point to their, like my phone sitting here, it's actually in my pocket. They like their police issued phone or their police issued computer is how the policy is. And yeah, oh, sorry, in the way back and then John.
Okay, that's it, but in a situation maybe where there's, you know, a kid gets picked up or kidnapped, they put in a, license plate number. If a camera picks it up, does it automatically then get sent out alerting that?
Yeah, it's
just
called,
at that moment?
yeah, it's called a hit. And so, or that's what we call them, like if you get a hit on a camera and it would alert to, like the officer's phones and their computer saying this vehicle with this license plate associated to this Amber Alert just drove past this camera.
So it seems like the retention time, or you keep information that's important, if you don't keep it long enough, for a little later, if you keep it too long, you've got a lot of data you don't need. So I help me understand the thinking around how long you need to keep it in order to acquire the most opportunities for that to have been valued.
Yeah, that's a very good question, one that's up for quite a bit of discussion. Because, you know, that's what people are concerned too, is if I have this data that can go back so far and can build patterns and such on people, again, we have to have a law enforcement reason for looking at it. But we would have, like, right now, our policy was set at 30 days. We could change it to 14, we could change it to 7. I do think there's a little bit of value in having it for a short amount of time at least, if not longer, because a lot of times, you know, people don't know a crime has occurred right away, right? And so they come back and something's happened. So if we're looking for somebody and all of a sudden we realize, oh, we have a string of burglaries and we think they're associated and we get a vehicle on one of them, it would be nice to be able to have some retention period to go back and see, did that vehicle pass a camera by any of these other locations and build a stronger case. So, but that is part of the discussion, is how long do we keep this data?
And the locations are, you're known, so if you have a license plate, you'll know on a certain camera, you know what the location is for that.
Correct, yeah, exactly.
How is it technically designed to only take the picture of the rear license plate?
It's actually not, when I say rear license plate, it's where it's positioned. It's angled. So I don't want you to think that the camera knows it's only taking a picture of a rear license plate. It's how the camera is pointed. Yeah, and so we designed ours for, you know, and I can't say it's never gonna get a front license plate. If there's two cameras next to each other, but it's designed to, you know, mostly catch the back license plate. Again, like you asked, could it catch a picture of a person? Yes, if somebody was walking in front of that camera, when it took the picture of the plate, it could get a person.
So to cover an intersection, you need 4 cameras at that intersection.
It kind of depends on the intersection, and then also, so like, you know, Eugene has their cameras, we have our cameras, and so we kind of try to a bit coordinate ours. So that like if we take a picture of somebody leaving Springfield, right? Eugene's camera has the picture on the other side of the street of them coming into Springfield, leaving Eugene. So not necessarily, but we did the best we could to try to get coverage of those intersections where we felt, especially like up, you know, near the Gateway area, there's a lot of shops and stuff up there, high retail theft area. How best could we capture people coming off of I-5 and getting onto I-5? So it just depends. We tried to do that with the equipment that we had there.
So the cameras see movement. I'm trying to understand what causes the camera to take the picture. So it's the movement, the car through the.
It does have a motion, yeah, so it has similar to what a motion light looks like, has a little bulb on it. That detects the motion to begin with. The AI in the camera then actually picks up, locates the rear of the vehicle, takes a snapshot of the rear of the vehicle with a high resolution camera. And it also provides from that, it actually takes a smaller one of just the license plate, blows that up, and then it's able to decipher that using artificial intelligence as well to say what the license plate was. And then it quickly runs that against NCIC and other databases. The only databases that are for things that are for stolen vehicles, missing people, anything that has actual National Crime Information Center database.
Just to clarify, this does not take video, only stills.
Or just take stills. Yeah, there are ALPR cameras out there that can do lots of other things, or just take still pictures.
What kind of ways do you plan on going about making this decision? Is it going to be coming to meetings like this more? Or is it going to be going to city council meetings or just putting out kind of like a campaign of ways to get to?
Yeah, I mean, I was invited to come here. If there's other groups that would like to have this conversation, that's fine. I've met with some community members and my goal is to continue to meet with them. And then hopefully we can work together and then they can share that out as well. I think probably some of the best spokespeople for something like this is community members that I've had the opportunity to work with, and then they feel comfortable and they can share it with other community members. Again, like to your question about timeline, of course, I would like it to be quick, but like I said, I want it to be correct. So I'm not gonna bring anything back to council, or actually I bring it to the city manager who would bring it to council until I feel that we have reached somewhat of an agreement with community on something that they would feel comfortable with. I think there's gonna be give and take on both sides.
Pretty, what's your kind of temperature, having been out and talking to the community? Like percentage wise, would you say the majority of people are comfortable with this and it's a small portion who are uncomfortable with the technology, or what's your take on it?
I think when I talk to people and explain it, most people are like, I just wanna know that my data is secure. And so, as long as I feel comfortable explaining that, I feel like we'll get to a point where the vast majority of people are comfortable with it. I don't know that I'll ever be able to get everybody comfortable with it, but we can get the vast majority and then continue to work to show that we are doing the right thing with the technology, that we're, auditing it, that we're monitoring it, and we're doing all of those things. I don't have a percentage necessarily. I think there's a lot of people who are curious about it and they want to learn more about it. And I'm happy to have those conversations.
Is a photo getting taken to every single license plate that drives by that camera?
Just about, yep. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, you talked about Eugene had it on for a short period of time, and they solved a bunch of crimes. One of the crimes, the group that was targeting Asian households for burglaries, and they caught them using SWAT them, if I recall correctly.
That is correct.
Technical question. You've got a 4-lane street camera posted there. 2 cars go by at the same time. What does it capture?
Okay, I'm gonna let Ryan answer that. There are different cameras designed for like different widths of streets. So, go ahead.
So Block has what's called a Falcon and a Falcon LR for long range. The Falcon is the standard ones. We have 24 of those is what we have in our contract. Those cover normally up to 2 lanes. Sometimes they can get as wide as 3 lanes, and it really depends on where you're able to put them, either on existing infrastructure and get the angles to be able to do that. If they're going by at the same time, the intelligence of the camera is going to be able to capture the exact same time frame. Though it's going to be able to either pull both of the license plate pictures out of the same picture, or it's going to take 2 simultaneous pictures of and be able to add those in. We have one of the long range, which was installed at the Beltline interchange with Gateway, looking at westbound Beltline. And the reason we went with the long range there is because that is at that point is 4 lanes wide, and those cars are potentially traveling quite a bit faster, which is what that camera has. It has a little bit of additional speed variance that you can actually pick up with those types of cameras.
Well, I really appreciate like being invited here and able to talk. If people have questions afterwards that they didn't feel comfortable asking here, be happy to do that. If questions come up afterwards, you can always get a hold of me at the department. Make sure that my information is available. But again, this is just a conversation that we're continuing to have. I do hope that we are able to come to some sort of ability to use ALPR technology in some fashion. I think it will be helpful, and I hope that we'll get there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Fresh, thanks so much for joining us today. Just a reminder, our next program is the third Thursday of this month, which is which date?
20th.
20th. And we're gonna be hearing from Springfield Utility Board on their water projects. So please come back here and talk about water and infrastructure in a couple of weeks.
Okay, that's not yours.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.